Whoa. Hey everybody, have I got a story to tell you? This is my Snapshot Autobiography. So back in 1992, I lived in Miami, Florida, and it's where I was born, and I remember as a kid, even knowing that there was something called hurricane season, coming in the late summer into the fall, and this wasn't anything real new for me or extremely scary because we'd been through a few small storms before, and in August of 1992, we realized that there was a pretty major storm beginning to travel towards the coast of the United States. You see, hurricanes often start in the warm coastal waters off the coast of Africa, and they travel across the Atlantic Ocean, and sometimes they'll hit the Caribbean, and sometimes they'll hit the United States. Well, this particular hurricane, which was named Hurricane Andrew, was the first hurricane storm, major storm, of the hurricane season in 1992. See, they name hurricanes alphabetically. So A, the first one, Andrew, began traveling across the Atlantic. I remember my family thinking, you know, this isn't too bad, this isn't too dangerous yet, until we got to about 4 days before the storm hit. So about August 20th, maybe it was the 21st, I remember going with my dad to the hardware store so we could buy these big pieces of plywood so that we could take them home and hammer them up over the windows. I also remember hammering some over our sliding glass window that went out to the patio. I remember taking our pop-up camper, you know, it's like a trailer you'd take camping. I remember taking our pop-up trailer over to a friend's house that was a little bit further north, dropping that off so it could be safe. They had a better spot that they could store it. I also remember going to the grocery store and buying a bunch of jugs of water and like a lot of canned food. I also remember us filling up our bathtub full of water. The reason that people do this is because after a major storm, it's possible that the water doesn't work, maybe the electricity doesn't work, maybe grocery stores are closed and you can't go and get supplies, so I remember us kind of getting ourselves prepared a little bit. As we got closer and closer to the day that Hurricane Andrew actually hit the coast of Florida, which was August 24th, I remember my family getting a little bit more and more nervous. As you can see in this map here, the storm kind of makes a sharp turn toward the United States. So I remember us kind of, on August 24th, getting ready for bed, tucking in our bedrooms upstairs. So that night we went to sleep, and I remember having a little bit of nervousness about the storm, and my dad said it'll be alright. Sometime in the middle of the night, my dad came into our room and woke us up. My brother and I slept in the same room. He'd already got my sister from the other room, and we all went downstairs. Our house was not very large, and the only real interior room, same thing with a tornado, the only interior room is a small bathroom. You see, in Florida they don't have basements like we have here in Minnesota. I might have messed that up. In Florida, they don't have basements like we do here in Minnesota, and so we went to the interior room on the main floor. And it was really small. I remember us being really crammed in there. But the plywood that we had on the sliding glass door, I remember that just being ripped off of the wall, or off of the house, by the power of the wind. And I remember my dad saying, this is not good, we're not safe here, we need to go to the last resort, which is our garage. So the garage is a single garage, only one car fits, but it's deep enough that you could have two cars in there. We had one car inside the garage. And also in Florida, they use their garages as their laundry room. So in the very back of the garage, we had our washer and dryer and that kind of stuff. And I remember the family all tucking down with our blankets and sleeping bags and pillows, all right up there by in the laundry room next to the washer and dryer. Now, a hurricane basically sounds like a freight train driving through your living room. It is such a roaring loud sound. And I remember the garage door of the house just being shaken and rattling. It sounded like a giant was trying to take at the garage door and just tear it off of the house. And this is the time that I remember being afraid. I was really afraid. But the craziest, eeriest thing happened in the middle of the night. See, all of a sudden, the storm stopped. There was no rain, no wind. We were in what's called the eye of the storm. It's right there, the eye of the storm. And the eye of the storm has no wind, no rain. It's calm and quiet. I remember even going outside and looking up at the sky and seeing kind of a little bit of a yellow sky. See, we went outside just to kind of peek and experience the eye of the hurricane. I remember my dad saying we need to go back inside because the storm is not over. See, there's still the tail of the storm to get through. So we went back into the garage and tucked back in. When the storm had finally passed and the tailwinds had left, we went outside the next day. It was a sunshiny day, but it was not happy. The aftermath was amazingly destructive. See, this is not my photograph, but we lived in a cul-de-sac similar to this. And our house would have been in this corner, and I remember looking across the cul-de-sac and seeing a house like this where the upstairs had been torn off and I could see into this inside of their house. Fortunately, that family had evacuated. Behind us, there was another house that I remember the roof being torn completely off. And the reason is hurricanes have these little tornadoes that spin off. And I remember seeing a path of destruction through our neighborhood where a tornado had spun off. As we were worried about, the water didn't work, the electricity didn't work, grocery stores were not open. And I remember going with my family in our car to survey the destruction and see what this all looked like, but also to go to a place where the National Guard was set up and they were handing out bottles of water and food and baby diapers and this kind of stuff. And on our way there and looking at the destruction, I remember seeing something that I had never seen before. It was called looting, L-O-O-T. And looting means people taking things that aren't theirs, stealing, but they do this in a time of panic where people either are not there or the stores are already open, the homes are already open. And I remember seeing people going in and out of the grocery store with food and bottled water and that kind of stuff. And my dad explaining that to me. But I also remember seeing my hobby shop, a place where I used to go and buy baseball cards, with the windows all smashed open and people climbing in and out of the store. And I remember feeling so sad that people were going in and stealing things from the hobby shop that I like to go to. I remember going and standing in a long line at the National Guard and getting some supplies going back home. I'm going to show you a few other photos of the destruction in the aftermath of the storm. Now again, these are not my photographs, but these are photos of Hurricane Andrew in August of 1992. And it shows you the desperation that people had and the destruction and the power that a hurricane can have. This next photo shows a piece of plywood that was thrown through a palm tree. It shows you how strong the winds were, over 100 miles per hour. Boats that were docked had washed up on shore from the storm surge. This photo is pretty remarkable here as well. Here's at the airport nearby. So this is a plaque that was placed to commemorate Hurricane Andrew. I'm going to read it to you. It says, on Monday, August 24th, 1992, at 4:30 a.m., the eye wall of the Hurricane Andrew, passed over this point before striking Homestead in southern Miami-Dade County. And that's where I lived. It was in Miami-Dade. Hurricane Andrew is one of the most powerful hurricanes in U.S. history, with wind gusts exceeding 175 miles per hour, and a local record storm surge or storm tide of 17 feet. The waves from the ocean were 17 feet tall. 15 people in South Florida were killed by the forces of that hurricane, and at least 29 died in its aftermath. Hundreds more were injured. I happen to be one of those people that was injured. It wasn't a terrible injury, but I was walking around and stepping on some boards, and there was a nail about that long sticking out of one of the boards. I stepped on it, it went right through my shoe and right into my foot. Not a terrible injury, but I suppose I'd be one of those that was injured. The destruction of at least 160,000 left at least 160,000 people homeless. Tens of thousands of people were affected, and the economic recovery took more than 5 years. The losses in Florida were estimated at $25 to $30 billion, making it the costliest hurricane disaster in U.S. history. In 1992, this was the costliest hurricane. It's now been defeated by a few other hurricanes, especially Hurricane Katrina, which caused more destruction. But in 92, this was the worst that we had ever seen. Unfortunately, my family and I lived through it. And we had a terrifying experience that we like to believe made us stronger. Now, this is a story, obviously an extreme story, that I remember pretty viscerally. I remember a lot of things about it, and stuff I didn't even tell you here. I want you to now think about a story in your life. It doesn't have to be a storm. It doesn't have to be this devastating. But something that made a real impact on your life, something you remember well. It could be the first time you met your best friend. I remember that too. It could be the first time you played your sport, or played your instrument, or a concert that you went to, or the time you took an amazing trip, a vacation. It could be the first time that you started school, or maybe you started school in a new school, or a time that you moved, or there was a major change in your family, maybe a split, or somebody moving away from your family, something like that. Maybe it's the first time that you did distance learning and learned from home. Maybe it was something recently during COVID. I want you to think of a story, but it needs to be a story that not only you remember, but somebody else remembers as well. It's got to be a story that you can tell or remind someone else of. They can tell their version of the story. See, this right here, Hurricane Andrew, I remember, but so do my family. My mom, dad, my siblings. And what you're going to end up doing is talking about this story, but then you'll be asking them their perspective of the story as well. So choose one that you will remember, and so will somebody else. Again, this is the Snapshot Autobiography. This was part 1. I was telling my story. Thanks for listening.